Hey there, my name's Drew Brashler, and in this video, I want to show you the brand new Waves eMotion LV1 Classic mixer. Now, if you're brand new to my channel, I'm all about helping you feel more confident with production gear, no matter where you're starting from. Also, if you are on a path wanting to learn more about audio engineering and having some more tips and tricks, head over to audiotoolkit.co, where I have a weekly newsletter for free that I send out with some of my favorite tips and tricks that I've learned throughout the years that I use in my weekly tool belt when I'm doing audio engineering. So head over there and check that out. But let's actually dive in and see what this console is and why I'm so excited about it. Now, I have been a long time Waves fan. I use their plugins on a weekly basis in my workflows, and it's just a great sounding set of tools. Now, if you are familiar with Waves, they have the LV1 system, which is their live mixer, and it's software-based. So you have a Waves SoundGrid server that does all of the server processing of all of the audio. And then you have a Waves SoundGrid I/O, or inputs and outputs. And then you have your host computer, which controls your mix. And then you can add things in like touch screens or fader modules and things like that. And the great thing about the LV1 is you're able to customize it to the way that you want it to. Now that is great. However, I love having something that is just a physical console. And that's where Waves has expanded their LV1 series and added the eMotion LV1 Classic, which we have here. Now, again, I love faders, which is where the LV1 Classic really shines because it gives you these beautiful 16 faders down here plus one for your mains. And you have all these fader bank buttons right here on the right-hand side. So you can go through all of your channels and you can even go and make custom layers. So you can go and make a custom show file for all of your faders that you want. So for instance, right here, I can go drop into my channels and I can have my 4 RF channels here, 2, and then 3 and 4. And then I can put that right next to, say, one of my graphics machines. So here's my graphics one. And I can customize these as I want. I can create up to 16 of these custom fader pages, along with all of your pages that go through all of your inputs and outputs. Now, you did just see me touching the screen, which is the other huge benefit of the LV1 Classic, is it gives you a 21.5-inch display that is touch sensitive and it supports multi-touch. So if I go through to my faders, I can actually adjust multiple faders at the same time up here on the screen. And if I want to, I can have this fader bank on mixer 1 and my screen on mixer 2, meaning that I can adjust my 16 channels here along with my master, as well as 16 channels up here on the screen. So I can go and grab these channels while adjusting the channels on the physical faders, which is huge. Now, the brightness of this screen is very bright. There's actually an adjustment back here that dims it down to 100 nits or as bright as 1000 nits. So if you are mixing either inside in a darker room, like a broadcast room, you can go ahead and turn down the brightness of your screen. Or if you are outside, you can turn it up all the way full brightness and be able to see it. Now, the other great thing about this screen is it is a matte finish on the screen. So seeing glare is non-existent. So you can see, you can't really see much reflection of my hands in my camera up top, which is ideal. So not only does the screen look great, it feels great, and it is super responsive to any of the touch. Now, that's just been talking about the control side of your mixer. Not only do you have these 16 faders down at the bottom plus your 1, but this beautiful touchscreen at the top, but then you also have user keys that you can define as whatever you want to. So if I go and press user, I can program all 16 of these buttons to be individual things that I want to. Or I can push it back to channel select, and I can use this for selecting my channels of my mixer. Now, moving down, we also have our LCD screens. Now, all of these are dependent on whatever channel you are on, or if you hit into user, you will see all of the user-defined keys and what they are. And because I don't have anything programmed to them, they just currently say none. Now, the next thing that we have down is our encoders. So we have 16 encoders plus a touch and turn knob. Now, the touch and turn knob is great. So if I go and select a channel and open up something, I can go and touch one of the adjustments that I want to adjust, and I can then use the touch and turn knob to adjust that parameter. Now, with the 16 knobs, those are based off of your encoders button right here on the right-hand side. So we have pan, or we have gain of our preamp, or we can go into edit. And now on the edit side of things, we can go and select any of our plugins that we have on our channels and actually be able to use the physical knobs for adjusting those parameters. We then have two shortcut buttons here on the right-hand side, which we can program by going into Setup, System Inventory, pressing on the gear icon of our fader bank, and we can adjust it here. So for instance, if I wanted to have my button 1 as my talkback mic, I can go and select talk, and then if I pick up my talkback mic, check 1, 2, now this is my talkback mic speaking to my band. The very last 3 buttons down here we have is our custom fader bank. We also have a spill, which allows us to spill our link groups, or our DCAs as they're called, and flip, which flip allows me to go and select any of my effects, my monitors 1 through 8, or 9 through 16, and then I can just go and select whatever I want to. So for instance, for my in-ear 1, I can go and press in-ear 1, and now I am mixing all the channels associated to what page I'm on of my fader banks, and this is actually mixing into my in-ear 1. And once I'm done with that, I can go ahead and press flip, and it will flip me back to being in my left-right fader mode. Now, I love that we are on the setup page because this is where we can really dive into the meat of this console. Now, the physical console on the back has 16 inputs, so 16 XLR inputs, and these are the Ionic preamps from Waves, which include an HMX analog style emulation inside of the circuitry. So not only do we have these 16 XLR inputs, but we have the ability of having this beautiful sounding analog input with some really nice overtones with saturation built into the console. Now this console operates at both 48K or up to 96K for our sample rate, as well as a 32-bit float. So not only is this going to be super fast as far as latency goes, but the preamps are going to sound phenomenal. Now we also have an AES-3 or an AES EBU input that has SRC on it. So you can sample rate convert any of the other AES EBU inputs into the desk. Now on the output side of things, we have 12 XLR outputs as well as 2 AES-3 or AES EBU outputs, giving us a total of those 4 AES outputs, being that each AES output has a left and a right. So what's great is having those 2 digital outputs would allow us to send, say, a left-right sub-fill over 2 digital XLRs to our amplifiers, which is something that I typically do a lot. That way, it keeps my output of my console digital all the way through to the amplifiers. Now, if this isn't enough I/O for you, you can always add additional devices on your SoundGrid network. There are 2 EtherCon and 2 Ethernet jacks on the back of the LV1 Classic, which allows you to connect all of the rest of the I/O that you want to your console. Now, Waves also has the Ionic 24 and the Ionic 16, which allow you to expand the amount of preamps that you have in your LV1 system. Now, the Ionic 24 is something that I actually have connected to my console here. So if I open this up, I can see my 24 inputs as well as my 18 outputs on the XLR. And the great thing about this is that it has the same preamps that are inside of the LV1 Classic. Now, as you can see, there are up to 16 slots for our I/O devices on our screen here. Now, on the server side of things, because this is a Waves SoundGrid network, we do have to have a server. But the great thing is inside of the LV1 Classic is a Waves server built in. So I don't have to add any additional servers. However, I have the ability of adding up to 8 servers, 3 more being our primary server, and then 4 backup servers for redundancy. So not only can I have 4 main servers, but I can have my 4 redundant servers on my network. I can load in so many plugins on this console and be able to run everything that I want to. So right now I have a full show loaded up running at 48K, and this is my corporate setup, meaning that I have a ton of processing going in with my different outputs. Now, if you are wanting to integrate the LV1 with other audio protocols, for instance, Dante is a very common protocol that I use on a weekly basis. I can use the Here Technologies Waves SoundGrid to Dante converter, and I actually have that here on my network. So I'm going to drop down my device 3, go into my network devices, and we can see the Here Tech SoundGrid bridge right here. So now I have the ability to go into my patch, and I can go to my inputs and select my hearing technologies, and we can see my 64 inputs that I have available to me on my SoundGrid bridge to Dante. Now that we've talked about all of the I/O of this, let's talk about the actual internal structure of the LV1 Classic. We have up to 64 channels of mono or stereo sources on the LV1. Now, if I go to Setup and I go to Mixer Settings, I can choose if I want to be on 32 inputs, 16 inputs, or 64 inputs. Now, those 64 inputs, again, can be mono or stereo. So if you ended up choosing stereo for all of your 64 inputs, that would be 128 sources coming into the LV1. Now, as the internal structure of the board also gives you 44 buses. And those 44 buses are broken down into 8 stereo groups, 8 mono or stereo effects auxes, 16 mono or stereo monitor mixes. We have our left, our right, and our center or mono main buses, as well as 8 mono or stereo matrices. Now, not only do we have that, but we also have 16 link groups, or a DCA. So in the Waves LV1, it calls them link groups, but those are 16 DCAs that we have available to us to program as a remote control to the faders that we have assigned to it. So for instance, I can go drop down to my layer 8, and here are my 16 link groups. Now, we also have 8 mute groups available to us on the LV1 Classic as well. Now, there is so much more to talk about on this console. For instance, there is the dual redundant power supply on the back of this, or the multitude of USB inputs for connecting external devices, for instance, a keyboard or a mouse or a USB drive for recording. Now, there's also 16 permanently licensed plugins that come from Waves that are installed on your LV1 Classic. We have the F6 Dynamic EQ, the Waves Tune Real-Time for giving yourself live tuning of your vocals, the Emo Q4 EQ, the Emo D5 Dynamics, the Emo F4 filter. We also have a GEQ giving us 30 bands of EQ. We also have the X Feedback plugin, which is a feedback eliminator, which is one of my favorite ways of ringing out a wedge. And I will have a dedicated video specifically just for that plugin here shortly. We also have the PSE, which is a primary source expander, giving us some mic bleeding protection and will help sneak out a few more dB of gain before feedback. We also have the Renaissance compressor, the Renaissance bass, the doubler, the H delay, the Renaissance reverb, the True Verb, the Magma tube channel strip, and GTR 3. Now, this is on top of also including the license for LV1. Now, of course, you can purchase Waves plugins additionally and load those via a USB to your LV1, giving you so many plugins at your fingertips for all of your channels. Now, speaking of that, you can insert up to 8 plugins per channel. Now, if I go and pull up one of my channels here, we can go in and see all of my rack right here. So I have up to 8 plugin slots available to us for using our favorite Waves plugins on every channel. I have a ton of processing power built into this console. Now, if there is a video that you're hoping that I would make on the LV1 in the coming weeks, please post that in the comment section down below, as I'm looking for more content to create specifically just for you on the Waves LV1. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to check out my website at drewbrashler.com. Otherwise, stay tuned for more videos on the LV1 Classic coming out on my YouTube channel. Thanks so much.